on. Chill.
Welcome back to our second season of Nerds on Ice, where cool nerds get fired up on today's hot topics. As always, I'm your host, Chris Fury, and let's introduce our cool nerds for the evening. First up, we have Jeff, aka Grounded Geek. He's a father of 6, husband, video producer, creator, and founder of World Gone Geek, and host and one half of the podcast Is Real. He also creates multimedia content for geeks everywhere. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeff.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. Next, we have Utah Shu, a former tech guru. He has programmed computers, designed databases, slung coffee, and sold for Apple and GameStop. Currently, he's a geek at home dad, a local theater actor, a ukulele enthusiast, and the second half of the podcast Is Real crew, made in Taiwan, but grown in Ohio. He is Utah Shu. Thanks for coming on, Utah.
Greetings, programs. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And coming from the murky depths of Lake Erie, we have Jason Fitch, co-founder of Pop, the Comic Culture Club, writer of American Night, and lifelong Aquaman fan, whose love rivals my own of Black Panther. With a degree in commercial art, he's occasionally an artist and illustrator, and if you know him well enough, he'll give you a doodle. That's a drawing, by the way. Thanks for coming on, Jay.
Glad to be here.
And last but not least, we have Jacob, a comic book and figure collector. He enjoys gardening, hiking, and bird watching, and lucky for him, it's still hitting 80 to 90 degrees in Nevada. He's played Warcraft and Defense of Ancients and Smash Brothers competitively, and the nerdiest thing about him is he doesn't have a social media page. But thanks for coming on, Jacob.
Happy to be back.
You're starting to become like the Steve Martin of the Nerds on Ice show. You've come on a couple times.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
We're going to have to start giving out awards for these things. So let's get right into it. So with rumors swirling about Lovecraft Country's Jonathan Majors possibly playing Kang the Conqueror in the next Ant-Man film, and the possible forming of the Sinister Six over in the Spider-Man live-action universe, one has to wonder about some of the obscure or forgotten characters that we have in the DC and Marvel universe. So let's just start there with some of the weird characters that we have in the Marvel and DC world, or some of the forgotten characters. Now, you have characters such as Howard the Duck, who was considered, even though he's not a forgotten character, he is an obscure character. So let's start with some of your favorite characters from either big house. Jay, we'll start with you.
Me, I Beta Ray Bill. I'm a big Thor fan, and I was really sad that they didn't work him into the movies. But the cool thing about Beta Ray Bill is he beat Thor. And Odin's like, hey, you're cool, man. You're definitely worthy. I'm going to make you your own hammer. And made him Stormbreaker, which they used in the MCU. So it's like, they'll have to work around that. But he's a very cool character that doesn't get the cred that he deserves. Mm-hmm. I would really like to see him used in the movies. And, like maybe get his own series here soon again. That'd be nice.
Right. Jeff.
Wow. So, well, first of all, I'm gonna have to second Beta Ray. I can't even say it. I can't second it if I can't even say it. But he did technically get. You're right. They nodded to him with Stormbreaker, but they also nodded to him with like a statue in Ragnarok. Apparently, you could see him in a statue. But when you said Howard the Duck, that got me very excited. Howard the Duck is probably my favorite all time. Not only because he's from Cleveland, but
this is true.
And as even as terrible as that movie is, I still love it. And it was trending on Twitter last week thanks to Chad Ochocinco. Did you see that?
Oh, you're right. That's
Chad
right.
Ochocinco actually tweeted about Howard the Duck last week. He was watching the movie, claimed it was one of his favorites. So yeah, I would love to see, and especially now that we've finally seen him on the big screen.
Yeah,
they've got a voice for him, Seth Green. And Endgame. Get a little sneak peek if you don't blink and if you pause. Yeah,
that's right. He was part of that. Yep.
He's my favorite all time. I would love to see like a newer MCU take on his instead of the George Lucas one. But then on the other side of it, as you said, I'm a father of 6, and my kids grew up loving the Power Pack. You remember that?
Yes.
And again, that's another Ohio, Mark Sumerak, who writes the Power Pack. He's from right here in Cleveland. And I would love to see, now that they're with Disney, this seems like a no-brainer, like a Power Pack kids movie. So those are my weird. That's a strange one, I know. It's like, but I'm thinking like for kids,
Oh yeah,
Kids with superpowers.
Yeah,
Why
too
not?
fun. Include
Easy
Franklin
sell.
Richards in there. Just bring them together. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, easy sell.
What do you,
That's
what do you
that would
think,
be a
Utah?
cash cow.
Who do you have for like your favorite or forgotten or obscure character?
Well, it's kind of funny because growing up as a kid, one of my favorite Marvel characters was Shang-Chi. And I don't know if he counts anymore because they announced last year that he's going to have his own movie, and they announced Simu Liu as the star, and I think that's great casting and great production crew. But yeah, he was, for me growing up, one of the more obscure Marvel characters that I really loved, and of course because I saw myself in him. All the other superheroes were not Asian, and here was one who wasn't just sort of a boilerplate Asian, like you saw in the Super Friends cartoon series, where their version of diversity was, here are the stereotypes, let's give them something to do. Shang-Chi was actually a three-dimensional character, and so that's my obscure for Marvel, and the fact that he's now going to be on the big screen, and they're bringing the Elementals and bringing them in a different way too. They're really, really excited about that. So there's my obscure guy.
Jacob, who do you have?
So for me, maybe a bit too obscure, but the Magic Lantern, the Green Lantern from Earth 47. Dude, such a cool design. I remember the first time I saw him, I thought it was totally fake. I didn't know that it goes back pretty far, and he's come up a lot more in the more recent, I think it's Morrison run of Green Lantern, but he's got the sweet oath, which I'll provide here. Get ready.
Please.
When it's groovy, when it's grim, we hum the living guru's hymn. When other lanterns lose their we keep the magic lanterns lit.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That was great.
It's
So-
the best.
So, we spoke, and as we were speaking earlier in the warm up, you couldn't get more obscure than the Doom Patrol right now. And with the exception of Cyborg, who seems to be the Wolverine of the DC universe right
He's
now.
everywhere.
He seems to show up everywhere at this point. There was a nice, really obscure character that was shown in, I think it was the first season, and it was Animal, Vegetable, Plant, Mineral Man, who is
love that
guy. So seeing characters such as that it's fun, and like you said, Utah, earlier, there was no other way to show that character. But now you have shows like Legends of Tomorrow, where we were talking earlier, where you could see a person like Plastic Man. So you have other characters that just are unheard of. You might have list Adam Strange 2. You have the Abyss, Battlestar, Atlas 2 and 3, and you have tons of these characters that have yet to be shown, could probably be mentioned. Take Ant-Man for example. They have Lawrence Fishburne, and he didn't play Goliath, but
Well,
obviously,
I mean, come on.
he
They
plays
strongly
Goliath.
hinted.
Yeah, it was a strong hint, and it was just like, okay, we almost got Goliath, sort of, and so you have all these characters. Probably I don't want to say one of the most obscure, but I think, like, Jay, your favorite character is Aquaman, and you've also often gone and said things such as, he's always been put down, especially after the Super Friends cartoon. They just kind of made him like this joke, but it wasn't until like maybe the 90s when he appears on the Adventures of Superman cartoon, the Bruce Timm versions.
Oh yeah.
That he becomes like this really cool, badass character. So what did that do for you to have this once obscure, laughed at character be transferred over?
Sweet vindication. It was so cool that I spent my whole life being attracted to this character Aquaman that everybody made fun of, and then finally people started looking at him. It pretty much started with Peter David in the comic books, turning him into more of an edgier character and following that parallel of King Arthur and really telling a good story with him and making him a badass. Having his hand get eaten off by piranhas and getting a cool blade. I mean, yeah, that was great. And they transferred that to the cartoon, which I think more people saw. And then he maintained this. Okay, he's not quite a joke, but man, once that movie came out, it was like the heavens opened up and the light shined down, and I'm like, I told you, here's you. It's true.
Oh man. So hopefully, I think it may be next year because they are trying to film it. There's the talk of the new Suicide Squad film. And what better film to have more obscure characters than the Suicide Squad? So,
it's amazing.
Yes. So Utah, you know much about this. So, like, what characters are you looking forward to from what we've seen from the short DC Fandom trailer? What characters are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, as soon as they showed Polka Dot Man, I mean, who could not fall in love with Polka Dot Man? And his superpower is throwing polka dots at you. So, I mean, that sounds spectacular. I am very, very, very curious as to who Nathan Fillion is playing, though.
Yes.
Because based on the listing of him as a cast character, it looks like he's playing the obscure DC character Arm Fall Off Boy. And his power is he can rip his limbs off and then pummel you with them. And so, I mean, kudos to James Gunn for digging deep and finding some of these obscure, yet I think they're going to be very compelling characters. And I think people are going to have a really good time on it. I mean, you think about it, when Marvel started the MCU, Iron Man was really not their A-game top tier character.
Right.
That was Spider-Man, and Sony had them. So Marvel went with Iron Man, and look what they did with him. And Guardians of the Galaxy was another kind of obscure group of Marvel heroes that a lot of people who didn't read comic books knew, and that became a hit too. So I'm all for it. I mean, the sheer vast menagerie of obscure characters in both Marvel and DC. I mean, there's fun little ones you can pick and choose and just surprise people with. I'm loving it. I can't wait.
Now, Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's a good point to bring up the fact that you see these movies like Iron Man, who at the time I would say is not or was not a popular character. In many ways, I would say he was kind of an Aquaman, right? Like, people didn't really think he was that cool. It was just kind of like, oh, a guy in a suit, who cares, right? Definitely didn't have the allure of someone like Batman or Superman or any of these really big characters. And then you look just a few years before the true first phase of the MCU with Hulk, which did not do that well. And that's a big character that I would say was very popular and well known. So I think that it really goes to show that we need more people that are willing to actually read the comics, and then these obscure characters are going to come out all on their own because they're really interesting. Will they have Polka Dot be the earlier version or the later version, the like kind of scary multi-dimensional murdering people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they could do so many different things with these obscure lame characters. Making them lame is cool too, you know what I mean? And there are so many options because there's so much source material. I think the trouble really comes when there are big Hollywood people that want to go for the biggest characters and want to create their own story.
What do you think, Jeff?
As far as the Suicide Squad is concerned, I think it's hilarious that they went to James Gunn and said, "Hey, we want you to make the DC Guardians of the Galaxy movie," basically. And then they said, "And you can pick from any of these obscure characters to make this movie." And he said, "How about 20 of them?" And just
right,
because there's so many characters, and that's what when they showed that reveal at DC Fandom. I was like, why are there so many? This is going to be insane. But then I forget, like many of them will probably have their heads exploded before the first act is over. I'm hoping my Pete Davidson is the first one on the list, but and then, no, I'm kidding. Sorry, Pete. No, he's funny. I'm just kidding. That did seem like the oddest casting for me. So I felt like that he might be fodder at the beginning. I don't know. That's no knock on Pete. He's funny. I'm just joking. But yeah, and I'm a little disappointed that Nathan Fillion is in there. And I'm hoping, because he didn't get revealed as far as like his actual look and stuff. So I'm still hoping he's a CGI character, because my fingers are still crossed that Wonder Man is coming to DC or to Marvel, and James Gunn will, I mean, he still can, obviously, even if he's, but I don't want him his face associated with some other, character in the DC. I want him to show up as Wonder Man in the Marvel universe at some point, and James Gunn coming back for Guardians 3 is the perfect opportunity for that. So
that's a perfect setup.
That's why my fingers are crossed, that it's like, I just don't want his face associated with somebody else. Again, unless he's knocked out right at the beginning and he could just be there as a cameo, because that's what he's already only been a cameo in Guardians so far. And that was fully CGI. Like you wouldn't even known it was him. So, or was it CGI or practical? Either way, it wasn't him. It wasn't his face.
It wasn't his face.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be awesome. But he really dug down to find the I was like, who are these people?
I'm surprised he doesn't have like the Condiment King involved in this.
Right? That's for the sequel.
Oh, the sequel. So, speaking of James Gunn, he seems to have this knack of taking the most obscure and the most weird, characters. And as we've seen at the end of Guardians Volume 2, we get a chance to see some of the original Guardians, like Charlie 27. What does this mean going forward? There was the tease of Adam Warlock at the end of the same film, or at the end of Volume 1. And what does it mean for not just a person like James Gunn, or not just a film like Suicide Squad, but just in the film where, like I mentioned earlier, the rumor running about of Jonathan Majors possibly becoming Kang the Conqueror, who in the comics, he's a villain, but he is, how big of a threat of a villain is he truly? He's not a Doom threat, like a Dr. Doom threat level villain. So we've seen what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done for certain characters. It's kind of up their game almost. What does it mean? And if DC can get it together, what does it mean on the big screen or on a small screen for them to bring some of these offbeat characters to life? Or where would you like to see the next offbeat character show up?
Well, I think Ant-Man and Guardians are the two best places, at least in the Marvel universe, to feature those. Suicide Squad, obviously, in DC. It's hard to bring, because Ant-Man is mostly comedy. Let's face it. It's like, you know what I mean? Like you watch those, they're funny, they're hilarious. Whereas, there's comedy in all of the Marvel movies, but Ant-Man, I would mark that as comedy, almost comedy first. You know what I mean? Like Paul Rudd is just makes you laugh.
Right.
Yeah. But and then Guardians, you've got an entire galaxy full of weirdos out there, right? Just strange and unusual people. So I see those two. I think it's Ant-Man is the perfect one to bring in somebody. And I honestly, I had to really think back. Kang the Conqueror, who was that? And so yeah, but that's going to be interesting. I think Jonathan Majors is fantastic, and I don't know if anybody's watching Lovecraft Country, but holy cow, that show is so good. So I think it's great that he is getting some recognition out, and start getting some other roles. It'd be neat to see him in the Marvel universe. Again, I had to look up Kang. I remembered the name, but I couldn't remember. Like, wait, who is that?
Yeah. Jay, what do you got?
Well, I think a good platform for right now seems to be the episodic, TV shows. The Boys, that was pretty, obscure.
Mhm.
Preacher was pretty obscure.
Yeah.
I mean, they could dip into Garth Ennis even more and pull up Hitman.
Oh yeah.
If you're not familiar with Hitman, that would be brilliant for a TV show. I mean, who doesn't want to see Dog Welder, on the life? But look at the success of Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get more obscure and weird than that. Swamp Thing was excellent, and that Swamp Thing's an obscure character too. And I think right now, especially with this whole COVID thing going on, and people are starting to say, hey, you can make some quality, big budget TV shows that people are going to take the time to watch. Why not take chances with some of these little characters that maybe people don't completely know, or, Plastic Man. I'd watch a Plastic Man TV show. We were just talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'll watch reruns of the cartoons.
There you go.
Sure.
I mean,
Just
come
bring
on.
those back.
What do you have, Jacob? What do you think?
Hello?
Yeah, there we
There
go.
we go.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I love King the Conqueror. Such a cool character. I kind of went through a I'm in love with Reed Richards phase and just went down every single pathway I could. So the idea that he could be connected to some other characters, finally bringing in more real comic booky style time travel, I think would be really, really cool if they don't overdo it, I hope. And then along with that, why not start to introduce these characters in shows like maybe WandaVision, right? So a show where you're traveling through time anyways, probably, or creating different realities. Why not just have these characters pop in just for a quick vision or a premonition?
I see what you
Vision,
did
I
there.
see. Yeah.
But I also, do I think that he's a Doom level threat? I love that you asked that. Yeah, he's so cool. He's so strong. He travels through tons of different timelines. He goes to the 40th century and gets all that crazy technology, and then comes back after getting beat up by the Avengers, after creating armor that's supposed to be like Doom. And then he comes back and actually starts whooping butt, right? So could they make him really cool? I think they could, and I would love to see him as kind of the Thanos replacement for the next phase.
Holy crap! He's Nathaniel Richards, right?
Yeah.
Was his name?
Yes.
Okay, now it makes sense. I'm more of a
So
DC guy.
it's
I
never
don't
been
know that he's
confirmed.
Thanos.
Well,
I don't know he's Thanos level,
No,
but I'm with you on up to that point. I think we can go a little bigger for Thanos.
Didn't he
That's
use
true.
stolen technology from Doctor Doom, like in the future?
He did.
Yeah.
Yep, he did.
Yep.
Yeah, he thought he was Doctor Doom's like kid because he thought
Mhm.
Doctor Doom was so sweet. But if you read, there was a recent run on him where he is, at least in the comic book,
Mhm.
they make him scary. It's
Yeah.
I would say he's easily comparable to any of the other big villains. So the older versions definitely falls a little flat, but they've been spooking him up a little.
Cool.
Oh, what do you think about like for Iron Lad when they brought him in for
Iron
Young
Lad.
Avengers?
Yeah, so
Iron Man.
I think that's another cool thing is that as he
'Cause couldn't
travels
that
through
spin off?
time, he leaves like a split of his personality. And then
Mhm.
when he finally becomes the super King the Conqueror, he goes back and like kills all of his old versions of or the other versions that
yeah.
he left and consumes them. And that's how he gets more and more powerful. So
So it's like
like I
Jet Li,
said,
the
I
one.
think they could really
one,
Yeah, just the one.
spice him up.
That's exactly right.
So Utah, what do you think about some of the possibilities of going live action with a Plastic Man type character, or dare I say 3D Man or Demolition Man?
3D man. Oh my god.
Isn't that everybody?
It's everybody, right? We're all 3D man, aren't we? We're 3D people.
Well, not
Um,
at the moment. You are.
Well,
Oh, right.
Not from my perspective.
well, you have to take my word for it.
Okay.
I gotta agree with everything that's been said. I think I feel like, especially with everyone being cooped up and the future of movie theaters and the film industry in general kind of in jeopardy. TV/streaming seems to be the way to go, and we see that Marvel is really kind of, they were already kind of going all in with it with Disney Plus. But now that Black Widow's been, delayed, all the other movies in each phase have now been pushed back because of that too. The only way to get Marvel stuff now is through Disney Plus and through streaming. And so why not invest more?
Right.
We already know it's been mentioned, WandaVision looks like it's going to really mess with multiverses or dimensions or time or whatever. And that's a perfect way to open up the door for other stuff. Doctor Strange has already opened up that kind of mystical world to it. Guardians was the first door to open up the whole cosmic thing. So Marvel Studios has really set themselves up to allow for easy introductions of obscure characters into their universe, whether it be on Disney Plus or in the movie theaters.
They've got Hulu too. Don't forget.
Oh right,
Yeah.
So all their more adult flavored, adult
Yummy adult flavored.
Hey, there we go.
adult content. I mean, MODOK is coming. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yes, MODOK is coming, which I thought.
That's
So,
pretty-
speaking of obscure, you do
Yeah.
MODOK is I mean, even though it's more of it's a stop animation show, people were like, oh, we thought we were going to get a live action MODOK, and I'm like, come on, do you think a live action
I'm
MODOK
not quite sure how
would have really went over well?
Yeah.
I'm
I don't know, but
patting
if
that-
It looked good in the recent game that came out, I thought.
yeah,
That's right.
Patton Oswalt is a genius, but I don't know if he would have been able to
stretch
pull
his
off.
face in CGI and put him in that. Yeah.
No. It should be practical, like Corbin's Fantastic Four. It's got to be
Oh
practical.
man,
Oh gosh.
talk about obscure and forgotten.
There you go. Obscure, yes. Forgotten, never.
No,
Never forgotten.
it'll never be a Josh Trank Fantastic Four. Let's put it that way.
That one I'll forget about.
Yeah, that one you'll forget
I've
about,
forgotten
right?
about that one.
Yes. So you still have so many characters out there that they're endless, and it's in both houses and many more. You have, like I mentioned, 3D Man. I don't know why he's stuck on my brain so bad, but you have Gaia, you have Grim Reaper, Death Cry, and Gilgamesh, and Flag Smasher, and Fool Killer. You just have so many weird characters, and it works. It just works, and why not? The Fixer, Enforcer, Implant, Punk. Scourge. Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, the Executioner?
He
that
was
what he
the
was?
white kind of skull face, and he wore that white trench coat and that hat. I remember that run when that came out in the comics. I loved that guy.
Wait.
I can't
that sounds-
remember who he fought or if he was good or bad. I just remember how cool he looked, and I bought every copy of the comic. I probably still have them.
But
But,
and you
yeah.
see some of the characters and then I wouldn't say forgotten, but you look at some of the characters that they have put on small screen and big screen. You have Connor Hawke, who has shown up in various different versions on Legends of Tomorrow and on Arrow and future versions of Arrow. Legends of Tomorrow themselves are known to have these obscure moments in history and these obscure characters like Captain Steel. I mean, you wouldn't think that some of these characters would even Firestorm, he was not really obscure, but he wasn't the major character you would thought he would have been. And here it is, I would have loved to see more, but what do you do?
I would say that he was fairly obscure until the show came out. Like it's been a couple of years now, but if we kind of travel back, I would say no one knew who he was.
Mhm.
Unless we were truly a reader frequently.
Yeah, Devil Dinosaur, which is actually becoming a more recognized character with Moon Girl.
Yeah, that's a great series.
Yeah, Demolition Man from the Daredevil series, Rage from Marvel. There's many more, and way too many to name. But
hey, and what's great too is that is in the big movies, especially with Marvel, you notice that they kind of mention a name or hint very strongly at these obscure characters, and those are, even though they're just like Easter eggs for those of us that can recognize them, like
Willie Lumpkin,
right, yeah, or the Tinkerer from
the Tinkerer,
Spider-Man,
yes,
right?
the
Like,
Tinkerer, yes,
and
Big Wheel.
Big wheel.
Exactly. So
I'm still
you know,
waiting for Pace Pot Pete, you know? So
Oh, jeez. But I mean, if they're willing to put those little Easter eggs and snippets in there, then all of a sudden they become canon. How difficult would it be for some of these obscure names to actually be fleshed out into more than just an Easter egg? You know?
Yeah,
So-
and I would say that with live action more recently, we've been getting so many characters that can lead into other characters that
Yeah.
there's only one way to go. If you see Raven now, and if we ever get a Raven show, then we're bound to see characters like Clarion and
Clarion the Witch Boy.
Clarion the Witch Boy. Exactly. All these random characters, which have also gotten a lot more love in comics recently, right? They're not often really even looked at in those mediums too frequently, and the more they come around, the more I feel like there must be a reason.
You know, earlier Swamp Thing was mentioned in the conversation, and you know, every time I think of Swamp Thing, I can't help but to think of Constantine, and Constantine is we've never forgotten but very obscure. And when I think of those type of characters, you know, in Clarion the Witch Boy, you know, I think if Constantine had a chance and was given the show, I think we would have gotten the Etrigan and the Demon.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's-
I think we would have gotten the Etrigan and the Demon, which would have been great. But
Doesn't
alas,
he meet someone in that most recent live action show named Jason Blood?
I believe he does.
See, and that's
But
just
it-
an example of drop.
Right.
Yeah. No name drops, you know. But unfortunately, guys, this is close to the end of the show, but it is the end of the show. I'm going to call it, but this is the end of our show. I want to thank our guests, and we will do our quick rundown so everybody can be found. That's our magic sounds. so they can be found, so they won't be obscure or forgotten themselves. So allow yourselves to be, you know, promote yourself here. Jacob, where can people find you if they can?
People can't really find me, but if you want to send me a message, I guess my email is j.carolsaris@gmail.com.
All right, Jay.
Look up American Night on Facebook. That's American Night, KNIGHT. That's a current comic myself and my buddy Rick Lozano are working on. Issue 1 is already out. Issue 2 is on its way. It's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
All right, Jeff.
Yeah, you can find
Hey, what's up,
me
guys?
personally
DJ
at
here with a
Grounded
quick,
Geek. That's
tutorial.
on Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. And then our podcast is The Podcast is Real. You can find more information at worldgonegeek.com. We're also at World Gone Geek on Instagram and Twitter and all those things.
Utah.
You can find me at all the social stuff, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at CoYutah, KOHYUTA, and also on YouTube as Utah and the Uke, where I do Uke covers just to bring a little aloha to the world.
And I am your unforgettable protector and host, Chris Fury. And until next time, remember to educate yourself and others, entertain yourself and others, and empower yourself and others. And until then, until the next episode of Nerds on Ice, Chris Fury, out.
To hear all of our podcasts, look for Circle of Nerds on iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to see these weirdos in their natural habitat, just look for Circle of Nerds on YouTube and Patreon. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.